What's up, everybody? It's Jose. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We're going to wait about 30 to 60 seconds just to let folks get in, but I'm excited to be sharing some stories today about building a culture of hope. So if you're just joining us, in the comments, please ask questions, respond. There's a couple folks that are going to be hanging out there and sharing some stuff as well. My wife, my awesome director, producer back here, Shannon, she's going to be responding to comments. If you got anything, share it, and would love to hear from you guys. I'm going to share a few stories and go through some things that are kind of on my mind right now. And then I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. So we'll do a little Q&A towards the end of this talk, hopefully about 30, 40 minutes. And I'm excited about doing this. This is something I've looked forward to for a little while now. But to start with, this is not just for you guys. This is also something for me. As most of you know, you're probably like Jose, you're the most optimistic, positive person in the world. And you always have a smile on your face. Everything always seems to be great for you. And most of the time, that's true. I'm very thankful. I lead a blessed life. I've got great folks in my family. I've got a wonderful community. But I also have bad days. And especially over the last few weeks, it's been kind of tough. And I say this to you just to be honest with you. This is something I need as much as hopefully you do, to share some stories about optimism and about how we can build hope and encourage each other. I don't say that to get your sympathy. Like, basically, I'm an events experience guy, so I'm a host, MC, speaker, and all that business is gone. So for the next couple months, I basically don't have a job, which is kind of weird for me. And we're going to be fine. And again, I don't say that for your sympathy. I say that so that you can hopefully understand that we're in this together, that there are a lot of folks going through struggles and tough times right now. And we need to find reasons to celebrate. We need to find reasons to share stories and hopefully inspire each other. So that's what we're going to do today. To start with, a couple of things. One is you're a leader. Everybody has somebody that they influence, whether you're a kid in school, whether you're, stay-at-home mom, whether you're working out in the business world, whether you're the leader of a company. Everybody is a leader, and everybody has the opportunity to influence somebody else. Especially the fact that you're probably here right now is, the fact that shows that you're willing to learn and willing to be a leader. So you have the opportunity to take some things today and apply them to your business, to the people in your life. The second thing is hope. Hope is such a loaded word. And I know even sharing this about, hey, we're going to talk about building a culture of hope. I'm sure there were some people that were skeptical. They're like, hope seems very wishy-washy, etc. But the hope we're going to talk about today is not a wish. A wish is different. A wish is, man, I wish that I was, 6'3" and could dunk the basketball. Well, that's not going to happen. I'm 5'10", at least that's what my driver's license says. And I definitely cannot dunk a basketball right now. But wish is turned into something more when you say, I hope, and you set up an action for that. So the hope we're going to talk about today is something that requires action, that requires a decision, requires somebody stepping in to do something to reach that. And to start with, I wanted to share some stories about Theodore Roosevelt. He's my favorite president. He was the first president to ride in an airplane, first president to ride in a car, first president to visit a foreign country while in office. And he has this great quote. He says, "Nothing in this world is worth having or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, and difficulty." We struggle with that, right? When we go through tough times, we're like, why is this happening to me? How can this be good? And a lot of times those struggles, those things we're going through are molding us, forming us, and making us into something better on the other side. Theodore Roosevelt was an amazing man, brought people together and inspired hope across our entire country and around the world. One of the cool stories about him is he grew up a pretty nice life up in the Northeast and decided at some point he wanted to go out west and wanted to be a cowboy. And you take this fancy city slicker guy, and he goes out west, and he's like, I'm going to be a frontiersman. And he goes to Texas, which at that time was still pretty lawless. And you got all these tough gunslinger guys that are like, who's the city slicker coming in here? And Theodore stepped up and was confident and started hunting and fishing and, became an outdoorsman and earned the respect of all of these folks in the Western territories. So when it came time during the Spanish-American War, there was a crisis that happened, and the country was at war. And so Theodore Roosevelt said, I am going to do something about it. So he went and got all of his buddies. These were sheriffs, frontiersmen, outlaws, and said, hey, we're going to form our own basically National Guard, and we're going to go fight this Spanish-American War. And so he commandeered ships. And this is somebody who was not in the army. He at that point, he was just a regular guy. And he said, I'm going to get all these people together and we're going to go help. We're going to go do something. And that was where the Rough Riders came from, was this group of frontiersmen that he pulled together, got horses, got ships, and actually was one of the first groups to land and fight in the Spanish-American War as the Rough Riders. So we've got 4 things we want to talk about with building a culture of hope today. The first one is a culture of hope chooses optimism. Again, a loaded word. When you say optimism, a lot of times you think about people that are like, well, why is that guy or why is that girl always so happy? Why do they have to be, that way? Well, optimism is a decision. And I love this word crisis because we're hearing this word a lot now. Well, the root word of crisis comes from the Greek. It's actually a medical term, and it's crisis with a K, and it means decision. It means you have to make a decision, and that's what a crisis is. A crisis is a moment where you can choose A or B. You can go this way or you can go that way. You'll hear it a lot in the phrases that it's used in, a crisis of belief. Do I believe this or do I believe that? And that root word crisis means that there's an action to it. There has to be some sort of response. You are engaging in this. Now, I know I've seen a lot of folks posting things like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be afraid. And I agree with that. It is okay to have those things. But you have to realize those are emotions. Those are not actions. So you can be angry, you can be mad, but it's how you respond to it. And when you respond to anger and fear, that's the action that you take. And you see it, the people that choose optimism, they can be frustrated, they can be upset, they can be afraid, but when they choose to do something positive out of that, that can change their perspective and change other people's perspective around them. I share this because I have a great story about my grandfather. This is my grandfather. This was Jose Vito Castillo. He was born and raised in Mexico City, but he went to school in the United States and led an amazing life. He was one of those guys, kind of like Theodore Roosevelt. I never got a chance to meet him, but he had the biggest personality in Mexico City. So much so that the Little League World Series was being played in Mexico City, and one of the announcers fell ill. And they said, who do we get to be an MC for this last-minute baseball game that can get the fans pumped up, cheering, etc.? So they called my grandfather, and they said, Jose, will you come be an MC for this Little League World Series game? And he's like, yeah, sure, I did. And so he came, and he had a blast. He had the crowd singing and dancing and jumping up and down, and the game was great, and everybody loved it. And the head of the largest radio station in Mexico City at the end of the game walked up into the booth and said, who is this guy that was getting the crowd going crazy? And he's like, I want to hire you. My grandfather was like, hey, I've already got a job. I run this whole company, but thank you very much. And amazing story about him is that when he was a little kid, he had an ox cart run over his right arm. And they tried to save his arm, but they wound up having to amputate it. So as a little kid, he spent his whole life growing up without a right arm. Now, over the years, he had prosthetics, and you can even see in this photo, he's got his right hand in his right pocket. And he would always wear gloves, and he had a wooden prosthetic arm. Now, you would think that a child being run over and losing their arm at that young of an age, that could lead to somebody who would have a negative outlook on life. And we see that. We see people that go through tragedy or crisis, and they respond in a negative way. And they carry that burden with them. And it's always, woe is me, and look what the world has done to me. And yet you also see examples of people that have the exact same thing happen to them and they respond with optimism and positivity. And that's what my grandfather did. He was such a jokester. Whenever you would meet my grandfather for the first time, he would loosen the little leather strap that held his wooden arm in place, and you'd go to shake his hand and you'd grab his hand and he would pull away and you'd be left holding his wooden arm in your hand when you shook his hand. This was the kind of guy that responded to that crisis with optimism and with positivity and made people laugh and shared joy through all the things that he did in his life. So, first and foremost, a culture of hope chooses optimism. Secondly, a culture of hope has a clear vision for the future. And I'm not just talking about a well-crafted mission statement. Thanks to Patrick Lencioni, I pulled this little mission statement. He shares this in one of his books, but I thought I would read it to you and see if you could guess whose mission statement this is. Is this a clear vision for the future? Blank Company provides its customers quality office and information technology products, furniture, printing values, and the expertise required for making informed buying decisions. We provide our products and services with a dedication to the highest degree of integrity and quality of customer satisfaction, developing long-term professional relationships with employees that develop pride, creating a stable working environment and company spirit. All right, type right now in the comments, can anybody guess whose mission statement this is? I'll give you a second. Now, this should be an opportunity to provide a clear vision for the future. A company asks the question, why do they exist? I don't know if anybody got it right or not, but this is the mission statement for Dunder Mifflin. That's right. Dunder Mifflin, the paper company that exists on the NBC hit show The Office. Now, if you read through that, you probably have heard and seen mission statements very similar to this. We all have. We all have worked in companies that have felt they need to create a boilerplate mission statement because that's what companies do. But that's not setting a clear vision for the future. And that's why I'm not big on mission statements, but I am big on battle cries. And you think about great battle cries, right? Like you've got Remember the Alamo, Give Me Liberty or Death, Giga Maggie's, OH.
I-O.
That's my Ohio wife back there. Good old Rocky Top, woohoo! You remember a battle cry in the heat of the moment. And it ties back into a deeper story of why you exist. Why are you doing what you're doing? So if you want to create your own battle cry, I've got my little battle cry maker 5000 right here. So it should be 5 words or less. It should have a yell test. If you yell it, does it feel good? Does it sound good to yell out? Like mine is add flavor. That's my goal in life. That's what I want to do is add flavor and bring energy and joy to everybody. Can you distill that down into a phrase that you can put up in your company headquarters, in your group, in your team, in your family, wherever you're at? Do you have a one phrase mission statement that really says why you exist? T-shirt test. Does it fit on a t-shirt? The trebuchet test. Does it sound good when you're launching something with a siege weapon? Is it memorable and does it have deep meaning? Is there a story behind it? Does it tie in back to why you exist as a company? So, and here's 3 questions you can ask. And this is something you can ask personally or as a family or as an organization. Why do we exist? Where are we going? And how do we get there? And if you can answer those 3 questions, you could probably come up with a pretty good battle cry. So secondly, a culture of hope has a clear vision for the future. Thirdly, a culture of hope is built on trust. This is the foundation for all of this. It's really hard to do anything else without a solid foundation of trust. And trust, there's a lot of different ways to build that, but I think it can be distilled down to these 3 things. So honesty, communication, and time. To start with honesty, you have to be honest with yourself and you've got to be honest with the people that you're working with. One of the phrases that I like to share with folks is, are you around people that are willing to ask you hard questions or share something with you that may be tough to receive? You will become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Let me let that sink in. You will become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, that can be exciting. It can also be kind of scary. If you look around and go, well, most of the time we spend our time at work, right? So most of our time at work, who are the people that we're surrounded with at work? And do we have honest conversations? Are they willing to tell me the truth? Can I tell them the truth? Are we able to have that honest communication? And if you're not, you probably need to rethink who your friends are, where you're working, who you're surrounding yourself with. The other thing is you get out what you put in. So, in this time right now where we're kind of sequestered and quarantined and hiding out, a lot of us are filling our time and putting things in that may not be the best thing for us. You've got to find things that are going to speak truth to you. They're going to be honest to you. So whatever you believe, if it's, hey, I need to go to church. I need to spend time talking with my friends to keep me centered. I need to read the right books. I need to hire a coach. I need to find somebody that can help me stay on the right path and be honest with me. But you're only going to get out of yourself what you put in. So be careful about the things that you're reading, watching, etc., and know that that's affecting who you are. You got to make sure that you're putting good stuff in. It's like eating veggies. The second piece of this, communication. You have to over-communicate clarity again and again. To borrow from the book The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, he talks about over-communicating clarity and then communicating it again and again and again. And you look at the companies and organizations and teams that do well, that build trust, it starts from a leadership person or team that says very clearly, this is why we exist and this is how we're going to act, how we're going to treat our customers, and how we're going to do that. And they don't just say it once, they say it again and again and again and again. So once you really find out what it is that is dramatically different, that's unique about yourself, you need to communicate that over and over and over again. We live in a day and age where we're inundated with information. We're just slammed with stuff. So how do we make sure that we stay on target? Well, we've got to communicate clearly again and again. Why are we doing this? The third piece to build trust is time. I love this story because when we moved into our neighborhood 20 years ago, we were looking for a house. My wife and I had been married a year. We lived in a little condo. And we were looking for something different. And we were driving through this neighborhood and this house had literally come on that market that day. We stopped in the middle of the road and Shannon got out of the car and said, this is the house we're buying. I love it. Now, it was a great house, 1890. It's where we still live today. A brick farmhouse. It was the original farmhouse on this piece of property. And had some rough edges, but it had character. And we really liked that. What we didn't think to do was look to the right or to the left around our block to see who were our neighbors. And we found out really quickly that we were in kind of a transitional neighborhood. There were a couple crack houses on our street. And when I say that, they were genuinely crack houses. We had to call the mobile police unit to come park on our street. And pretty quickly, we found several of our neighbors that wanted to change where we lived and change it for the better. So what happened was we started going to meetings. We started hanging out on these people's front porches. We started calling the police officers. We started reaching out to our city and saying, hey, we need to get speed bumps. We need to change the zoning so that we don't have these type of homes being set up, etc. And wound up over, about a 5-year period cleaning up the neighborhood. Now, when you're in the trenches with somebody and you go through battle together, you come out the other side with trust. I trust my neighbors. I love them. Zombie apocalypse happens, we're going to share food. We're going to take a bullet for each other. We know each other's birthdays. We go camping together because we've been through that tough time together. So a lot of times it takes time and going through something rough to build trust with somebody. Be patient. It will happen when you spend time with somebody. So that third thing is a culture of hope is built on trust. Fourth and final thing, a culture of hope inspires others to do the impossible. And this is my final story, and then I look forward to doing some Q&A with you and chatting a little bit more, maybe hearing some stories from you guys as well. But I love this story, and I share it as often as I can because hope comes from being around other people that are willing to share their stories with you. And I think we all have an obligation right now to share how we're doing with others, be honest, and hopefully inspire others with what we're going through together. So this happened a few years ago in downtown Johnson City. We have a festival every year called the Blue Plum Festival, and as part of that, they have a bike race. and it's a pretty big deal. It's an Omnium criterium for those of you in the biking world. There are professional bike riders that come from all over the world, race teams, etc., that race through downtown Johnson City. And there's some big cash prizes, and it's a really cool event. They block off all the streets in downtown, and it's a really twisty, turny course, and there's wrecks and excitement, and people come out and sit out on the neighborhood restaurants and watch the race. Well, before that big race that they do right at the end of the day, they have the little kids race. And the little kids get excited about it, and they get out there on their little bikes, and they do a little 1 kilometer lap around the course, and they crown a little winner, and the kids get to be out on the race course. So both of my daughters came to me and said, Dad, we want to do the bike race. I'm like, awesome. Yeah, Sophia and Olivia, get your bikes. We'll go down there. We're going to have a good time together. So they get on their bikes. And at that moment, as we were pulling up to the start line, I realized that Olivia was maybe a little young to be in the race. Here's why. She was the only one on training wheels, and she was probably about a foot shorter than anybody else out there. But we pull up to the start-finish line, and I kind of look around, and my wife Shannon's like, Jose, you might want to run alongside Olivia and just make sure she's going to be okay. So they fire the gun, big deal, big start-finish line, and the bikes take off. And instantly, the rest of the kids, boom, they're gone. They're like pros out there. They're navigating the course, and they had already rounded the first corner before we even got there. So I'm jogging alongside Olivia, and I'm like, Olivia, you could do it. This is going to be great. Now, Olivia I wanted to make sure she didn't get frustrated and, throw her bike or whatever. And I just wanted her to be calm and get through the whole thing. So we take around the first corner, and I'm kind of running alongside, and she's pedaling squeaky, squeaky on her little pink bike with the little training wheels. And we come around the first corner, and at that moment, I noticed that the pro bike riders were out on the course. And I was like, oh, okay, they're just warming up. They're getting ready for the big race. And these guys are huge. Like, they got legs the size of tree trunks and massive guys. And they're out there pedaling, getting warmed up for this race. This is a big deal for them. And, a couple of them are out on the course. And as we round the first corner, I noticed that there's one guy, and he kind of comes up behind us. And I'm like, well, just pass on by and it'll be fine. Well, he doesn't pass by. He pulls in right behind Olivia. Vroom. Huge guy on this bike right behind Olivia. And I'm like, oh no, is he going to yell at her? Is she going to get weirded out by him being behind her? Are we breaking some kind of rule I didn't know about? And I'm running alongside, and she's squeaky, squeaky. And we come to the first restaurant, and there's some of our neighbors sitting out there at the table, and they look and they see Olivia there, and they go, Olivia, you can do it. Yeah, and they cheer her on. They say her name, and the guy kind of looks up, looks down, sees Olivia, and we keep on going. And I'm like, good, great. It's a motivation. And then I'm like, but we still have a long ways to go. Come on, Olivia, stay with it. So she pedals along a little faster. I'm running alongside. And another guy comes up behind him like, please, guys, just pass on by. Get warmed up, do your race thing, whatever. And instead of passing by, whoom, he pulls in right next to her. And I'm like, oh, no. Now we got 2 giant guys riding behind her. We're not even halfway through the course. I'm beginning to get nervous. Are they going to yell at her? They're going to ask us to leave the course. Are we breaking some kind of unwritten bicycling rule? And we come around another corner, and another guy, instead of passing by, pulls. Now there's 3 guys right behind Olivia. She's pedaling as hard as she can. I'm running beside her, and I'm just starting to sweat, freak out a little bit, and make sure she doesn't get hurt or something goes wrong. We finally come around to past the halfway mark, and there's a little hill that comes up, and there's another restaurant with another group of people, and they see Olivia, and they're like, yeah, Olivia, you could do it, and cheering her on. And by this time, there's about 5 or 6 guys now behind her, and I'm really getting nervous. Now, at this point, the race has finished and has been done for probably a few minutes. The rest of the kids have crossed the start-finish line. The race director is now standing up on his perch going, where are all the race guys at? We got to get this race started. And the crowd is kind of murmur going through it. Shannon is going, where the heck is Jose with Olivia? Has she, tossed her bike to the side? Has, he gotten in trouble? What's going on? So everybody's wondering. Well, at that moment, we turn onto State of Franklin. And as we're coming up this little thing, Olivia starts slowing down on the bike. Squeaky, squeaky. And I'm starting to like a dead run. And now there's a whole bunch of guys right behind her. And at that moment, when I thought that they would be angry and upset with her, the lead guy right behind Olivia leans down and goes, Olivia, you can do it. And the other guys start going, Olivia, you can do it. And they start cheering her on. And as we round this final corner, we come down the start finish line, and little Olivia is got the entire peloton behind her cheering her on to the start finish line. She crosses the line, the crowd erupts. The guy on the microphone's like, it's Olivia Castillo coming to the start finish line. And everybody cheers. Olivia thought she won the race. Now, in that moment, it was an inspiration for that guy behind her to say, you can do it. He didn't have to do that. As a matter of fact, he should have been focused on his own race, right? He had his own problems, his own things to deal with. But in that moment, not only did he, but the entire group saw an opportunity to reach out and inspire one person that it didn't really matter to them where she finished or how she finished. But I love that image of little Olivia crossing the start-finish line with the entire group behind her cheering her on. And that's what we have an opportunity to do today. We can inspire somebody else to do the impossible. And that's what a culture of hope does. It inspires others to do the impossible. Because right now there are things that are going through our mind that we're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if we're going to get through this. I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't know what tomorrow holds. But we have an opportunity to encourage each other and say, you know what? You can do it. And you can do it. You can. So a real quick wrap up. These 4 things, a culture of hope. If you want to build one in your team, your family, your group of friends, you have to choose optimism. And it is a choice. Every decision you're faced with, yes, you may be angry, you may have fear, but you got to choose optimism. It's the only way that you're going to build hope and be able to move forward. That was a great Simon Sinek quote that I sent out this morning that he posted on Instagram. And I highly recommend you go follow him. He wrote a great book called Start With Why. But it's true that optimism builds hope and hope moves us forward. Secondly, you got to have a clear vision and you have to be able to communicate that with your team. And finally, thirdly, it's built on trust and you have to be able to trust the people that you're around. Finally, it will inspire others to do the impossible.